Very fittingly for this video, I'm wearing this dress. It's got the moons on it, but it has pockets. It has pockets. Disturbia, I love you. Hello folks, and welcome back. This week, as promised last week, we're going to be talking about the moon phases. The moon phases. We're going to be talking about the moon phases, what the separate moon phases mean, and how to work with them. And then I have a little hack that I use because sometimes remembering every single moon phase at any given time is a bit too much, right? So let's just get comfy and cozy and we'll hop right on into it. Grimoire ASMR. Ooh, so spooky. So with all of these, I'm always going off sort of my own notes, my little bits of research. So you have got this in this kind of space. I'm just gonna find my page here. I'm so proud of this page. I'm so sorry, but it's gorgeous. And I did just want to talk about the moon phases because, as we mentioned 2 weeks ago with the celestial energies, working with the moon or any of the celestial energies can be hugely beneficial to your craft. But the moon itself, in its celestial energy, has those connections to magic, to witchcraft, to intuitiveness, to psychic ability, to divination. And so having a little special section for the moon and her beautiful phases, I think warrants its own video, So first I am going to dive in with the phases. And first, of course, we have the new moon. Now, the new moon I use quite frequently for cleansing and sort of clearing the energy for the month or the lunar cycle ahead. And it's a really good time to get that kind of fresh start in, really see the new potential of that new month, that new lunar cycle ahead, and start as well planting seeds, setting little intentions. So I like to personally, if I'm going to try to kind of will something or manifest something, I like to have that be sort of a period of time that I work on that. And I like to start at the new moon because it's a really good time to get those things going. As with the waxing of the moon, obviously the moon grows and you can see that the manifestation, those intentions, that you're putting out there will grow along with it. And so with then the first waxing crescent, the first phase after the new moon, it's a really good time to start getting into action, to working on those manifestations and doing what you can in the sort of the mundane, in the physical world as well. It's a time really of like building and growth, and you'll see that theme kind of within the waxing phases. But it is like a quite a good time for, if you're going to make mistakes, do them then, right? But there's a nice trial and error aspect to it because you still have so much more of the moon's growth to come. So it's the time in which you start taking that action, seeing what works for you, putting in that work to try and work the seeds that you have planted into some kind of a shoot, essentially. And then we get to the first quarter, otherwise known as the half moon. And again, with the themes of the waxing moon, this is still very action taking. It's very growth based. It's putting that work in, and it's also a very good time for navigating any obstacles. So working with this phase, if you feel like you have a blockage at all, be it yourself or something else, trying to work through that, get through the sort of the root cause, making strong decisions to help any working that you're doing really have a direction to go in. Quarter moon is essentially the time for committing to whatever it is you're working on, potentially committing promises to a deity or a spirit that you may be working with, and also for any adjustments that you may want to make. It's a good time to reassess and see where you're at with things. It's a good time to start dipping your toes into a little bit of refinement of the working that you're doing, maybe trying to really direct where the working is going, making those decisions, really trying to work on that manifestation coming into light with the growing of the moon. With the next phase of the moon, it is the phase right before the full moon. It is the waxing gibbous, and that refinement that we were dipping our toes into in the previous moon cycle is really in sort of full bloom here. Keeping that determination and keeping that perseverance to fine-tune the working that you're doing. Focus up with anything that you might be working on and check in with the alignment of yourself. Check in that you are aligned with the intentions that you set whenever you set them, be that the new moon or whenever that you did set them. It's a really good time for polishing, for perfecting, and for doing any last little details that you might want to do to really get the best out of something. Which brings us to the full moon, and the full moon is a really good time for success and for reaping the rewards of the workings that you've been doing, that manifestation coming full force, for example. It's a great time for charging or recharging. But not only that, it's just such a good time for honoring and for celebration as well. So if you have a deity or a spirit or something that you're working with, honoring them in the full moon is a really good time to do that. Celebrating them or celebrating yourself or your friends in the full moon, it's just a really good time to do that. Additionally, the full moon is a really good time to practice gratitude and reflection. How did that first period go for you? That new moon to full moon, how was that period for you? And even if you're not working with the full cycle of the lunar cycle, reflecting on any of the workings you've been doing or any of the work that you've been doing and seeing how that went for you. Were you aligned with yourself in that time? Did you put the work in that you were supposed to work in? And that reflective energy that we're kind of dipping our toes into with the full moon, that's carried on into the first of the waning part of the lunar cycle. So with the waning gibbous, it's a really good time to do a lot of reflection, and not just that, but release unwanted energies, any of the energies that you've brought along with from doing that work, from inputting that hard kind of action. The waning gibbous is a really good time for that reflection, for self-assessment, for checking in with yourself, or releasing what you don't need anymore, what's not serving you anymore. Now, as I said, the waxing kind of cycles kind of have a little theme running through them, as do the waning cycles. So with the last quarter, or again, another half moon, that reflection, that reflective period is still there, but it's also about forgiveness, forgiving burdens that you may have felt in that time, during that time of work, the burden of work itself, forgiving that, letting go of any worries that you may have been harboring and trying to remove that from yourself so that when the next cycle comes along, you're not bringing that with you. A good time for a light cleansing as well, as is a lot of the waning cycle, and trying to get some relaxing in, trying to find your own peace, trying to just let go, really. Finally, we come to the waning crescent, which is the last cycle before the new moon again, and the whole cycle repeats. And the waning crescent is a great time for rest. It's a great time for rest, for relaxation, for rejuvenation, for just self-care. It's a really good time for recalling your energy back, for getting any energy back that you might have put out there that doesn't serve you being out there or serve anyone else being out there anymore. It's just another really good time for finding your peace and taking care of yourself. As well as it is a very good time for banishing and cleansing, just like the new moon. So if there are any unwanted energies, doing a cleanse, anything stronger than that, banishing it, that is a very good time for that, along with the new moon. Which brings us, of course, full cycle. Now, as I said, there are sort of themes that interlock with the different phases of the moon as it's moving through them. But when it comes to spontaneous kind of witchcraft, stuff that you're not sort of planning a month in advance or anything like that, just knowing what kind of moon phase period you're kind of in and working with that energy could be quite beneficial. So I have a little hack, and it's my 4-point cycle as opposed to the much wider cycle that we have. And that just uses the new, waxing, full, waning kind of method, I guess. So if you happen to find yourself on a new moon, might be a really good time to do sort of cleansing work, setting intentions, do any banishing. But new moon, cleanse, sow your seeds for manifestation, for setting intentions, for working your will. It's a good time for that. If you happen to find yourself in the waxing period, it is a really good time to put the work in, to take some action, to refine or improve on anything that you're doing or any of your abilities, and to focus up, essentially. So that is the working period, that's the action period, it's the go period. So if you are also looking for maybe answers or decisions, again, which decisions will link into that waxing period, if you're looking for decisions on that, it's a nice little sign of a yes, go. That's the time to do something. And then we move on to the full moon, which the full moon is charging. It is harvesting manifestation. It is celebratory. It is honoring. If you're looking to work any ritual work, full moon, that's the time to do it. When it's at its fullest, when the energy is at its strongest, go for the full moon then, do your celebrations, make your offerings, make your moon water, you know, that's your full moon time. Then if we come to the waning part of the moon cycle, that's the time to get your self-care in, get your reflections in, to do some cleansing or banishing as necessary. It's resting, it's reflecting, it's slowing down and maybe saying no, and honestly, it's probably a really good time to check in with your boundaries. Now, if I'm planning a working a month or a couple months in advance, if I'm really wanting to harness the energy of a specific lunar cycle, that's fabulous. I've got my references, I can go into that specifics, I can set a day, I can set a time, I can go into all of that. But sometimes you just do the little things for yourself off the cuff. And sometimes it's nice to know that you've got a little backup in the form of the moon whenever you're doing something. So if you're planning things, check out the full lunar cycle. Learn the full lunar cycle for yourself as well. Work with the different phases and see what they bring up for you, what workings they work well with for you. But if you're just doing off the cuff stuff, it's really pleasant to say. If you're just doing off the cuff stuff, then having the knowledge of the sort of the four main phases, I would say, is just as beneficial. But I would love to know how you work with the moon. Do you have every phase memorized, or do you have a simplified version for off the cuff? Is there a specific phase that you like the most, that works well for you the most? I'd love to find out, so please let me know in the comments below, as well as if you like the video or if there's anything that you might want to discuss. I'd love to go through it. Thank you so much for watching this video and my witchcraft, retention and learning and sharing journey here. I really appreciate it. I hope you stay fed, watered, rested, know that you are loved because I love you, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.